Dzień dobry.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the next meeting, the Freedom Games. I would like to welcome our guest, Manuela Gretkowska, whom I don't have to introduce, I suppose. I am Marta Zdanowska. I represent Łódź Women's Trail. I don't have to introduce Manuela Gretkowska. I will simply say writer, author of several dozen of books, screenwriter and columnist. And let me add that she is born in Łódź, Bałuty district. So we are very happy. It was my great-grandmother who lived in Bałuty. So welcome cordially. Let me start with something that happened in Łódź 3 years ago, Women's Congress 2018. It was different time, better time than we have now. We were talking that we are fighting for our things and celebrating 100th anniversary of women's voting rights in Poland. Let me quote what you said then, because it means something different nowadays. During the previous rule of the Lauren Justice, I understood that Poland is female, that without equality for women, our country will not be a democracy. Traveling with this idea all over Poland, I saw that we are fine as women. But the problem, that men are the obstacle to change something. That is why I changed my opinion. Poland is not a woman, is like a drunkard in depression, a male. And then prosecutor's office started to follow me. Even the prosecutor's office finally accepted that Poland is female. Simply patriarchal men decided that it should be reported. What do we women long for since baby Jesus did not go to the creche or kindergarten? Equality of payment. Virgin Mary did not create the world. She was only a subcontractor and deserved less. For politicians, women in Poland are like subcontractors of democracy. And that is why they lose, they fail. So 3 years later, we lose even more after the largest protests since Solidarity, when women went to the streets. And what comes next? Next election, I think. These protests were not meant to change the system. They were dedicated to a very particular cause that will not be handled due to many reasons. On Monday, a new Newsweek issue will be available. A week ago, I was in Crete buying a house when Rafał Trzaskowski failed the election. I sold my house and bought a house on Crete. I was sitting in a swimming pool. I can't swim, so I wear inflatable sleeves. And I know it's pathetic, but I suppose it can save your life, just like seat belts. There was an inflatable flamingo and a 40-year-old blonde man who turned out to be the co-author of Gomorrah book, Mr. Artur Nowak. They wrote it together with Professor Obirk. Why am I referring to this book? I do recommend it. It's going to be brought out on Wednesday. This book explains the rules of church operation. They are not different from the operation of the Law and Justice. It describes the situation of the clergy, although the processes which we observe cannot shock us at all. Only the imagination is the limit, but there are some capturing quotations. When Łódź was telling to the journalists, "Fuck off," we heard some saying, "You old cunt." Then Mr. Ziemba, when a priest was admitted being harassed by a priest, he said, "No, not possible. You're so ugly." And this, it goes this way, but we are ruled by such people. They awake fear. They try to find our enemy exactly the same method. The worse people we promote, the better. But there is also John Paul II. He is the patron of unborn babies. His concepts are still destroying the church. Ban on female priest abortion and celibate. If an Antichrist or the beast of Babylon was incarnated, it would be a married woman who is a priest who intends to abort her pregnancy because she intends so. When I think about Polish church, it's most conservative in Europe and strives for the perpetuum mobile to keep on working. And we, the women, are like a sub-layer of what is happening. And if some changes occur, I would like to participate in such marches as Women on Strike to be meaningful, to be able to change something. The difference between those who win and the law and justice will be so small that we'll need the church's support. And if it's the church, then John Paul II, and that's it. The story of the church in Poland is difficult to explain. We have already accepted that the current image of the church is not the one that it had in the 1970s. It was helping during the solidarity times, but the price for this help is really high. This is the price we have to pay even nowadays. And women's rights are the card they want to play with. I'm not sure why the Catholic Church has the right to talk about it. But this is not the question to the church. We have the Concordat. It's about who supports it, who maintains it, and the myths about the church which supported the independence didn't care at all about Poland during partitions. Vatican had a deal with Russia, with Austria-Hungary. So this is a blackmail owing to which this fable is sold to us. We owe something like a feudal peasant. There are lots of different stories. We accept it. This is not imposed authority. This is the authority selected during every Christening, Holy Communion, and on every Sunday. The church does not pay taxes. They don't have salaries. They have their own right, and it's like a mafia. It's like a mob, and we accept it. We selected a political system which is like a copy of it. One supports another. And this is the question to those who vote for it. If the church's loyalty program starts from baptism, from christening, who are we fighting with? With the God? So the question is why they can't think of anything else. There was no enlightenment in Poland, so we didn't manage to create a different symbolic tradition than the one related to the church. It's even related to such traditions as layman funerals, because it's like we have the tradition of supporting folk-based religion and priests from villages, from the countryside. Don't spend this time to talk about the church. Let's come back to women. Yesterday, we had a panel, Independent Poland, Enslaved Polish Women, with the participation of Marta Zdanowska and Maria Peszek. It was an interesting panel because of some reasons, but one aspect was particularly important. Despite the whole story that brings us down, it contained a lot of humor. All participants said exactly the same what Marta Lempart, the co-founder of Women on Strike, said, that they are really tired of living here. Every choice is a political choice. You have to fight for everything. You have to go to the street because otherwise people won't listen to you. We have to protest all the time. If you are 20 years old, perhaps you feel like doing it. If you're 30, perhaps you still feel like doing it. But at a certain point, you don't have enough power to do it continuously. In other words, a life of a woman in Poland who longs for democracy or a normal life is like a constant battle. So we were talking about it before the meeting, and I feel you are also fed up with it. Hence the decision to move out from Poland and to move to Crete. It's not like that. I have two houses. I have one home here. One is a small log, and another one is also a small cottage. These are not villas. The majority of Europeans have two houses in different parts of Europe. As for my fatigue, my tiredness, you have to do it your own way. You will succeed or not. But it's still worth trying, because otherwise you won't feel comfortable. Nobody cares where a writer lives. I received a lot of unpleasant, negative messages when I wrote I wanted to move out to sell my house. But they didn't realize it was 1988 when I used to live in France. I used to write books which were published in Poland. Even during voting, it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter where a writer lives. I can live in Honolulu and write about current Polish issues, or I can live in the center of Warsaw and write about the 13th century. Completely different times, completely different world. As for tired women, I think that those who are most tired are those who have to earn their normality. You can live in a normal way if you have money. You can have good healthcare service, relatively good school, and abortion on demand if you have the money. And that's really terrifying. If women are tired by trying to break with poverty and simply to buy freedom with money, it's like telling a story in sociology that we have Poland A and Poland B, Poland of two different rates, but there is also Poland W of women who decided to leave the eastern part of Poland, went to Warsaw. During the pandemic, they were not able to survive, and they had to come back to their hometowns. It happened during the time which was so difficult for us. So I suppose that all these economic aspects strike women with double force. Women are still responsible for managing home budget and bringing up the children. I do feel that in the dark pandemic time, women were struck by the pandemic. They often lost their jobs, they lost their savings, and consequently, the government decided to interfere with the act that should have been changed for 30 years, but not the way it was changed. So let me put it this way. I asked the same question to Klementyna Suchanov. What would you tell to a girl who emigrated from her hometown, had to come back? Now Poland is reopening because I think that immigration is good once you have come to terms on certain things. Not everybody can leave this country. This is my country. I want to live here according to my rules. Going to the streets all the time, bring up my daughter in a different way. What else can I do?
I cannot tell you, I cannot say what people should do because everybody has their own specific situation. But if it's possible, people just leave, even before Law and Justice Party. I encouraged people to leave. Just go to another country, learn the language, learn different words, and then decide where I really want to live. I do not understand why people are so attached to their countries. Why do I have to live here? Because it's my homeland. Well, I've got the passport. I can come back to Poland if I decide to. We only have one life, so I really have to live my life. There are people who graduate from school, from universities. People have different situations. We met a year or two ago. We met in Gdynia on a beach. You approached me when me and my family were sitting in a beach. It was a festival, Literature Gdynia, and the event was organized in in a high-rise building. I didn't want to go inside because of COVID pandemic, and everybody actually who wanted to enter this facility, they had to sign a document that they will not jump out of the window if they want to open the window. And that was probably a great idea because poets are famous for committing suicides. And we talked because we are both from Łódź and you are involved in the men and women of letter. And whenever I come to Łódź, I can see these beautiful murals. There are, of course, murals in Mexico, in San Francisco. They are also quite nice, but I think the ones in Łódź are great. I saw some beautiful murals in Promieniści Park, and there is in one mural there is a boy. I think it's the area of the former ghetto. So I have been asking why there are no women in these murals, and now I was walking down Franciszkańska Street and I could see a poetress, an Yiddish poetress. There are so many wonderful Łódź women. Of course, I'm not talking about myself. I wouldn't like to be depicted in a mural, and not at least when I'm alive. What I love about Paris underground, well, on the wall, you could always see a citation, a proverb, a saying of a day, of a month. So it was like a different word. We not only create, but we also have the spiritual, poetic side. So maybe we could have some quotes of poetry such as Jasnorzewska. I drive quite a lot. My daughter is 20 years old, and she loves to listen to Marek Grechuta, and he sang both his text and text by Polish poets. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. It really takes your breath away. I do not even think of Polish language. The metaphors, the poetry is just amazing. And to me, this is Poland. If I was going to tell you what Poland is, of course, Bałuty is Poland, you know, the scents. I have learned everything in Bałuty. But when I think of this other Poland, broader Poland than Łódź, I would say that poetry, it's the language. No, it's not the language. We speak Polish, of course. It's not the language itself. It's poetry. Listen to Grechuta's songs, how he sings poems by Grochowiak, Nowaks, and how he sings his poems, and Mickiewicz. Mickiewicz has prosopagnosia. This is something Brad Pitt suffers from, because when his wife announced that she has to amputate her breast because there is a risk of cancer, Brad Pitt said that he also has a disease. He doesn't recognize faces. So Mickiewicz wrote, I don't know if it's love or is it friendship. So he also suffered from that disease. So you can listen to these poems many times, and you find out different things. I know this poem. I have known it for ages, but only yesterday I could make the diagnosis. What's this poem about? And it's a great coincidence when you have a when you have a poem combined with music. That's why I'm also talking about murals. You can pass a mural 20 times, and then you are passing it for the 21st time, and all of a sudden you see something different. I would like to add something to this. On behalf of the Łódź Women's Trail, we decided to fight for a mural in Łódź. Unfortunately, our proposal failed. There was a more interesting one. I don't personally like it, but we have managed to accomplish some minor actions that keep the memory of Łódź women. Chava Rosenbach with her Tree of Life, which is a great story about pre-war Łódź. But I don't want to talk about her. I want to talk about Irena Tuwim. Everybody remembers her as a translator who translated Winnie the Pooh. However, not many people remember that this less-known sister of Julian Tuwim published 3 volumes of poems. They were not republished since the war. She was often compared to Pawlikowska Jasnorzewska. Her poems are about tumors, for example. This is the topic that was not often mentioned. We cooperate with Łódź councillors, and now there is a square named after Irena Tuwim. It's a small pocket park. There is a playground there, and there is a board which commemorates Irena Tuwim, not only Julian. And there is a short brief information about her life. So I would like to welcome everybody to visit this square. I also would like to boast, to say about one more thing, that this is so difficult to accomplish. So we are getting back to this theme that Polish women are so tired, especially that all these things, when they run NGOs or foundations, they have to do it after work. So they are so tired. I think that maybe in a year or two, maybe there will be a mural depicting one of these poets, another Yiddish poetess. I also meant Polish poetess. I have in mind Polish young women. It would be a good compilation of Polish and Yiddish poetess. So in Franciszkańska, this poetess whose mural is at Franciszkańska Street, she should be combined with a contemporary poetess. So actually, I learned Yiddish, and actually, when I was a school girl, when I was in the first year of the grammar school, we went to an association of Jewish people, and actually we said that we would like to learn Yiddish, and there was this wonderful gentleman. He lived at Piotrkowska Street. He survived the war, and he taught us Yiddish using her poems. So that's incredible how this cycle has become complete. You are talking about Polish women to be tired, because to us probably it's even more tiring than the work of miners of the 19th century. And actually, Polish women are backwards. Our situation is like the situation of European women in the 19th century. So our work is really, really hard. We have to work like miners do when they have to reach through the consecutive layer of coal. And then there's this contrast. A woman is the mayor of Łódź, and the things she's doing are incredible. And a human being, not only women. I say that culture has developed humanity. We've got wonderful power station and planetarium, but without spirituality, we wouldn't be here. And we keep forgetting about this, that it's only the background. And the Mayor Zdanowska, she set up a division for spirituality and of culture. I think it would be a great idea if Maja Zdanowska established such a division, such a department. Of course, we wouldn't like the involvement of the church. So we really need to highlight this element of women's culture. We have to climb out of the mine. We also show some kind of continuity. All the time we hear about men, but we've got hundreds, thousands of women who did a lot of great things, but then they disappear. You cannot read in school books about them. Well, actually, the school's teaching is something we shouldn't talk about. So the Yiddish culture, this tradition also shows something that here we are trying just to commemorate a tragedy, Holocaust. But if we combine the history with the present, so this continuity, so it's not about lighting candles because we are celebrating the uprising anniversary or ghetto anniversary, but we do not have to light the candles, we can light our brains. I think it's a great conclusion. I would like to add one more thing. I wouldn't like us to light candles in Łódź to celebrate the outbreak of Warsaw uprising. We should remember it, but I think it was a hecatomb. I prefer that we should remember the revolution of 1905. We should remember people who were becoming unified to fight for their life. And then these people set up the first workers' trade unions. So they are elements of our local history. I would like to say something about 1905. My favorite movie, it's The Promised Land. Actually, the final scene is that we see someone throwing a stone of the revolution of 1905. Then we had the men of iron. I don't want to boast, but my father's brother took part in this revolution, and he was hung at Narutowicza Street. So whenever we were passing that place, my grandma was always pointing at it, and she was saying that he was actually hung there. So when I think of history, sometimes I associate it with gallows. So at the time, most of the workers took part in this revolution. My great-grandfather actually took part in the revolution. No, unfortunately, I don't have any pictures. We lost all the photos, but I've got some photos of my great-grandma when she was working in Poznański's textile factory. It's like a group photo.
Do zbiorów.
I have a very special photo. They were standing in their slippers under the gallows. Yeah, it's a piece of difficult history of Łódź. Okay, questions from the audience. Okay, last question. Let me start with something that can seem quite pathetic, but I would like to refer to what Maria Janian said. Daughters are meant for big tasks. And this is a meaningful sentence. I keep on saying that daughters are created for big tasks which should be related to their self-development, joy, and self-fulfillment, not sacrifice. You have a daughter. She is 21 years old now. Did you share any wisdom with her? Paula, are you here? Did I share any wisdom with you? No. I think the greatest dream of every daughter is to liberate from the influence of her father and mother. Yes, daughters are meant for big tasks, but they have to believe in themselves, and parents should support them, because it is not an easy thing to be a girl. So that's the time to give the floor to our audience. Just before entering here, I talked to Barbara Nowacka, and she said something really nice. Slider. That there should be like a slider. Both ladies and gentlemen should ask question. One question comes from a woman, another from a man. So I suggest such a pattern. Julia Pivovar, I would like to come back to the beginning of your conversation, when you quoted an excerpt from the book about the negative situation of women. You also remembered the last panel which took place yesterday. It's really positive, it's really constructive. So I wanted to ask you whether for the last 2 years, haven't you felt that this position is changing, it's rising? Not only within the whole society, but among themselves, that we are developing also through the protests, owing to the culture. On the 10th of September, Maria's record was brought out. It's really strong. She sings from her abdomen. The whole culture is reverberated, and it will take us to some systemic solutions. How do you feel it? How do you perceive it? Throughout the last 2 years, has anything changed? I can feel the change. As a 23-year-old woman, I can feel a tremendous change. So regardless of whether people are older or younger, I would like to find out whether you feel it. The fact that we use feminine endings, that we say grandmother and not only grandfather, it starts with the language, and thoughts follow. And something that is happening, that something is changing, is simply to influence the situation. We are open, so we have the access to the whole internet. If the internet, we have the access to the whole world if the internet is available. Being in Poland, you can live normal life as for culture and mental aspects. I'm not sure whether we'll be pushed away to the margin by the barbarians. I don't want to say the pagans, but I was in a meeting. He brings together people of different ages, and they share their experiences. And he started talking about pagans, and I said, why do you use this word? Since this is the problem with the Polish church, which is so terrible. And they said, No, we use this term to refer to the Polish Church. We're not going to be a grunge at the side, but we are open to the world. In China, they have the unity of the party and the nation. Here, the nation is associated with law and justice, and they also captured the church. It's so difficult. It starts from Christianing from the primary school. We are an open society as long as we can. It's changing, but clashed with life when the law is selected this way and we fail another election. This clash will be even stronger. I emigrated in 1980s. I wrote should or emigrate. Now I would write think or emigrate. Let me add one more sentence. Many excellent, talented, and wise young girls went to the streets. This is the change that we saw this year and last year. The unity between generations was really tremendous. It sends shivers down my spine even when I talk about it. So I'm sure that these young women will change this country. I do believe in it. Three minutes left, so if you feel like asking a question, it can be even a man. Referring to feminine endings, I'm 71 years old. And when I was a student, it was obvious that we had female teachers, female biologists, female chemists, and so on. I'm used to it. At home, at school, everybody was using these forms. And all of a sudden, these endings disappeared. And now we are climbing up to return to it. This is not a tremendous achievement of the previous years. The problem is that they vanished somewhere. We also have to be aware that there are some languages where there are no feminine endings. There is no differentiation between male and female forms in some languages. In English, we rather don't have them, or rarely do we use them. In French, we do have them. So if there are three genders in the language, this is a grammatical problem which affects the way we think, but there are some languages where such a problem does not occur. French has tremendous problem with writing because it's really hard to express what is happening there. Let's look at it this way. These are some fluctuating problems. This is not that we have to fight for something as a completely new thing. These are the things that used to exist, but then suddenly something went wrong. 100 years ago, we were granted the right to vote. An experiment showed that in the languages which do not have male, female endings, if a bridge is feminine, the description of the bridge takes more delicate adjectives than the nouns which are of masculine gender. Certainly, I do agree with you as for our approach to church and to others. I think the endings are important, and how things end are also matters. I use feminitives whenever it's possible. There are some jobs which are reserved for males, such as miner. I don't think there are any miners working at the front walls, but there is no point in sticking to it. Let's wait for the first female miners, unless they close down the mines earlier. It should be an obvious thing. Use them when we consider them important. We should use whatever we want, whatever forms we want to use. And the same is true with the rest. Daughters bringing up. What's the point? We do what we feel the right thing to do, males, females. There are some females who are against women as well. Let everybody do what they want to do. Should we beg for our rights? And done. These are the women who decide about how to raise kids. No, the church. Now you know what the church can do. Yeah, but we do it because of other women. All right, dear ladies, since we have to finish this meeting, let me ask you to continue the discussion. Manuela is going to give signatures on her books at the Do Dzieła bookshop stand. Let me sum up in the following way. It all must end well, and let's stick to it. Apocalypse is female as well.
It's not always easy to recognize. It may look like this, or like this. It may be a burden, but it is a responsibility that we embrace nonetheless. But if it means this for one person and this for someone else, maybe it ultimately means being there for one another. It isn't handed to us, but we know where to find it. And how it feels, how it tastes, and what it sounds like when we finally have it. It means different things to different people, but for many, it means everything. And if we all fight for it, it will eventually bring us together.
Ihrer Ausreise.
Work is different now. We're commuting less, virtually meeting more. Separating work life and life can feel challenging. It's easy to forget that to thrive at work, we need to take care of ourselves. Microsoft Viva Insights offers new experiences to balance productivity and well-being. Personal insights help you stay at your best and most productive. Add structure to your remote workday by opting for a virtual commute, carving out time to have a productive start in the morning and mindfully disconnect in the evening. Protect time before your calendar fills up for focused work, coaching, and learning. Take regular mental breaks with Headspace, tapping into dedicated moments of mindfulness. Use emotional check-ins to tune into your day-to-day mindset and well-being. Strengthen team bonds with Stay Connected experiences that prompt you to praise collaborators, schedule one-on-ones, and follow up on pending commitments and outstanding tasks. Insights for managers and leaders offer windows into how work happens and the impact on employee well-being. Identify where teams may be isolated and take action to break down silos. Quickly discover opportunities to prevent burnout, promote coaching and development, and boost engagement. You and your team's well-being is important, especially in times of change. Taking care of one another allows you to thrive and your organization to build resilience. Experience how new well-being insights in Viva can help.
Liberté Talks. To, co ważne. Partnerem podcastu Sztuczna Inteligencja jest Microsoft. Seria Liberté Talks realizowana jest dzięki wsparciu Google oraz Państwa darowizną. Na podcast Sztuczna Inteligencja zaprasza Paweł Luty.